Welcome again to Cottage Talk. I am Russ Coleman. Joining me right now is Giannis Janaeus and Tony Gold. This is our post-match show of Fulham's 2-0 victory against Leicester City. We have a lot to talk about in regards to this match, probably for about an hour. This should be fun. If you're watching live, please feel free to comment. I also want to mention, if you're not already doing this, please do subscribe on the Cottage Talk YouTube channel. I'm really trying to push this. Please do subscribe. I would really like that if you could subscribe. It's also a great way to get alerts that we are live. So please feel free to subscribe on the Cottage Talk YouTube channel. One last thing, obviously going to mention about the Patreon page. Please do check that out as well. All right, guys, let's just get to it. Mr. Janaeus, it's been a while. How are you doing? And I want to get your opening thoughts.
Yes, great to be back. It was a necessary win. How do I put it? Yeah, a necessary win after Tuesday night's disappointment down at the Spammers. It was a clinical performance against the Leicester side that are really struggling right now. You're hearing chants coming from the stands. You don't know what you're doing to
Van Nistelrooy.
Van Nistelrooy, and two nice goals, and I think a very solid performance. They really didn't create a lot of anything. So three important points as we get ready for two important games coming up. We've got Man U next Sunday, and I think then we've got the Cup against Wigan, and then we've got Newcastle. So a good little fill-up moving forward. A good little win yesterday, for sure.
Totally agree. Tony, you and I did the preview show, which is on the Cottage Talk Patreon page, and I'm curious your thoughts about what we watched here today, or I'm sorry, yesterday. There's a Goldman to start the show. Give me your opening thoughts.
Yeah, I think Giannis hit the nail on the head, Russ. I think it was a much needed win after they, shambolic performance against West Ham. Do you know what? I don't think Fulham even got out of second gear, is the honest truth. That's how poor I thought Leicester were. The first half was literally, it was the most boring halves of football I think I've ever watched. Nothing really happened. Really. Fulham took time to get going, and it was just a bit of a nothing game. But obviously, second half, it was nice to see us come out second half for a change rather than, be the team that's always conceding early. For once, we came out and scored early, and we sort of grew from there. And Leicester didn't have any answers to it really. So yeah, it was all in all a good 3 points and a good win.
Okay, so it's been described, Tony, as a professional performance. Would you agree with that, calling it that, or just a professional win?
Yeah, look, I think ultimately we kept a clean sheet, which was much needed because we haven't had many of those in recent months. So that was good. And as I say, it's a response that you want. After the game against the Spaniards, as Giannis said, you want a response. The team responded. I don't think it was a sublime, unbelievable performance. They did what they had to do. But the difference, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it, the difference with Berg coming back into that midfield area, honestly, it made such a massive difference to us in terms of our shape and how we, got our forward and attacking players into better areas.
Okay, I guess you know me too well because that's going to be the opening topic of this show. How much did Fulham miss Sander Berge? So before I do that, I've already got some comments, guys. So I'm going to just share some comments. This is from Chris Jones. It says, Berge was class yesterday, and we've definitely missed him. Our friend Black, White, and Fred shares, return of the Berge and the Serb duo in the middle was delightful. Carl, I will definitely get to your comments about Castagna coming up, but I want to focus on the Berge situation. Giannis, over to you. How much did Fulham miss Sander Berge?
I think a year ago I might have laughed if you told me we'd be talking about this, but we really did miss him. And he was my. I know that we're going to get to man of the match. He was my man of the match. Lukic looked more comfortable. We looked more solid in the centre of the park. There was more freedom created, attacking midfield wise. I thought he was outstanding yesterday.
Okay. Over to you, Tony. I'm getting a lot of comments about Berge. I actually did my 5 takeaways. That was one of my takeaways, is that Fulham really missed Sander Berge. This combination of Berge and Lukic, I think, is going to continue to be dynamic. I also mentioned on the 5 takeaway show that right now Lukic actually has 9 yellows, and he will get a 2-match ban. But it's good, at least for the Manchester United match, and hopefully for a longer, we'll get to see these two guys together. How much did they miss him?
Yeah, look, that partnership has become critical for us. Since it was put together, and you've seen the impact that it has. What it also allowed yesterday is it allowed Smith Rowe a little bit more freedom in their final third to go and express himself and to go and play as the player that we know he is. And that's why I think you saw a better version of Smith Rowe yesterday than we have seen in recent weeks. Putting everything else aside, but what Berger and Lukic give you in there is a defensive unit in front of our defence, if that makes sense. So it solidifies us a little bit more defensively, but then it also allows our attacking players to be a little bit more free to go and express themselves. And that's what I think why it worked so well with Smith Rowe yesterday. And, you've got to remember, Lukic also was outstanding yesterday.
Yeah, he was.
He was involved in everything, absolutely everything. So, I mean, as Yanis said, I can't believe we're talking about this, but at the end of the day, that's how important those two players have become to this Fulham side.
Okay. And again, Tony, you must be reading my mind. Let's now talk about Emile Smith Rowe. Okay. That leads us ready to talk about it, because I was thinking the same thing like you, and then I'll get your thoughts on this, Giannis. You and I did a preview show. We talked about it. We wanted to see more of Josh King, even Josh King starting. But maybe this solidifier underneath Emile Smith Rowe with a combination of Berger being back. But this is why you wanted Fulham supporters to be patient, right? Because we saw his ability once again in this match.
Yeah, look, I'm disappointed with certain fans about getting on his back so early. There is so much to come from this player. Trust me, so much to come. But you have to be patient. You have to remember where he's been, what he's come through, all the changes. There's always pressure that comes with, a £30 million price tag. And, we just need to understand that he's got to fit into a system, and Marco Silva needs to find a way to get the best out of him within that system. And that's not him doing, 30-yard doggies defensively. That's getting him on the ball in the opposition's final third and allowing to express himself, which he did yesterday. And he's technically our best player by a country mile. You've got to get him on the ball, and you've got to get him on the ball in areas where he can hurt teams and affect the game. And we did that yesterday.
Okay, excellent. Giannis, I want to get your analysis of Smith Rowe. As Tony and I were talking yesterday, now talking now. I think he's a vital player for Fulham's development, not just this season, but moving forward. But if we're going to be honest, his play has not been consistent. At times, he's been a passenger. He was a passenger against West Ham. But against Leicester City, we got to see the version I think we all want to see of Smith Rowe. Your thoughts?
Yeah, he's still a young player, and it takes a while to get used to the system. Let's not forget Lukic last year struggled a little bit, and we had Paulinho in there. Now look at where Lukic is, and I think Smith Rowe needs a year to bed in. But he's going to garner more respect when he's going to be a creator of moments, and while he beds in. And that goal he scored yesterday was a super goal because it was extremely brave. And it's going to win a lot of plaudits among the fans.
Okay, excellent stuff, guys, to get us going. So now let's go to my section called The Good, the Bad, and Who Won the Coaching Battle. So we've probably already talked about a couple of players that are in the good. So let's go back and talk about Berger. And he was actually voted by the fans as man of the match. So I just want to mention that on the Fulham website, the official Fulham website. So Giannis, I'm obviously going to put Berger in there. And like you had already mentioned, you didn't see this a year ago, but if you break down the match, exactly what did you see from Berger? He's definitely in the good category.
Yeah, just his reading of the game. He was mopping everything up. He and Lukic, huge umbrella there. He's not the Berger that I saw at Sheffield United and Burnley. I thought he looked like a bit of a lanky one, just missed time challenges, didn't seem to be able to play. He's tightened his game up considerably. And I thought he was superb yesterday, and he and Lukic have obviously got a very good understanding there, such that players like Pereira can't even get into the lineup.
Okay, very good. Over to you, Tony, I want to just mention this. I'm glad that Giannis brought us back to talking about something that I actually mentioned on the Patreon page. As we talk about Berga, I want to get your thoughts on this. I said on my 5 takeaways that, listen, I got very strong views on Pereira. I see his value, but he's a square peg in the round hole playing the number 8 role. So whether you have Lukic in there, whether you have Berga, whether they're switching off the number 8 role, Pereira doesn't make sense. But I'm going to say in this match, Berga was very good, but I think also not having Pereira in there was a benefit. I'm saying addition by subtraction.
Look, you don't need rocket science to work it out, Russ. You know, at the end of the day, Pereira just has not been playing at a level that's good enough to warrant the amount of playing time that Silva has been giving him. And as you say, playing him out of position hasn't done him any favours whatsoever. You know, if it's a toss-up between, you know, him and Smith Rowe in that attacking midfield role, I'll go with Smith Rowe all day long. You know, I don't understand this myth around Pereira. His set ball, dead ball delivery is woeful, absolutely shocking. Yes, he can pass the ball. Yes, he's technically okay and sound, but he's a professional Premier League footballer. He should be. But ultimately, what does he bring to this Fulham football team? Nothing is the answer. Absolutely nothing. A bit of, you know, genius once in a blue moon. But from a consistent point of view, if Silva wants to play him in that deeper lying midfield role, it doesn't work. And it's proved it doesn't work. We have to still put everything in perspective. We were playing Leicester yesterday. Leicester are awful. They are a team that's heading back to the Championship unless something drastic happens. They are awful. So we have to be a little bit, you know, realistic. Let's see how we get on against Man U and Newcastle in the next couple of games, and then we can judge it a little bit more. But look, at the end of the day, this Fulham team has outgrown Pereira, and it's time to move on from him now, really, in my opinion.
Excellent stuff. All right. Over to you, Giannis. Feel free to chime in on that, but I'm going to throw another player into the good category. We've already talked about ESR, so I don't want to just continue to talk about that. I'm going to share a name that I'm actually glad I can put in that category. How about Adama Traore? What are your thoughts?
Well, back to the Pereira thing, he's frustrating. He's frustrating. You can see the abilities there. He's in and out of games. He should be a much better dead ball hitter than everybody makes him out to be. You know, is he going to be transferred in the window? It makes me wonder that the fact that he wasn't brought on yesterday was maybe a little bit telling. Adama Traore, and actually I was going to ask about that because do we know or have we had any word from the club about Iwobi? Alec Traore went off at half time. Was that a tactic?
I've seen reports that it was the flu, Giannis.
Oh, okay. So he looked out of sorts first half. Yep. You could tell that something was wrong.
Yeah, he was unwell.
He was unwell. Yeah, he didn't look right at all. I remember one ball he tried to play to Robbo on the left, and it went out to touch, and he hangdog. He didn't look right. Good. Okay. At least it wasn't an injury. I thought Adama played well second half, and it goes to show that he can score a goal occasionally. I think that his last goal was against Luton last game of the season last year, if I may I might be wrong on that. But nice setup, Harry Wilson, beautiful cross.
Yep.
And I thought he had a good second half.
Okay, very good. I'm going to share this from Black, White, and Fred over to you there, Tony. He says, Wilson was great again, involved in both goals. So let's talk about that.
Well, look, I mean, I know Giannis has given Berger man of the match, and rightly so, because, you know, he was excellent. But my man of the match yesterday was Harry Wilson. I thought he played a major role he did play a major role in both goals. You know, his delivery to Lukic and then his ball to Smith Rowe was excellent. And he's just playing at a level that, you know, you can see why Liverpool, you know, had him and took him on, and he's just and Silva's now getting the best out of him, and he's playing with incredible confidence. And I thought he was excellent yesterday. Leicester couldn't deal with him. They just couldn't deal with him.
Okay, excellent stuff. All right. Chris Jones also shares this. Once we went up 2-0 up, it would have been a good time to give King more minutes. We're going to talk about that when we talk about the second half, but I want to get your thoughts on that, Tony. You and I have talked about it. The only disappointment, maybe I was going to put this in the bad category, and we can get to the bad coming up. is that he didn't play King enough.
There's no point bringing on the lad for 1 minute. It's absolutely pointless. I don't get it. I really don't get it. You've got an exceptional talent here, right? Who is, I don't understand Silver's thinking behind this. He's going to come into. He's not going to make the team any worse. Give the kid half an hour. You're 2-0 up against Leicester, right? They're not in the game. Let him come on. Let him go and play with some freedom and go and express himself. And I just don't get it. I just honestly do not understand it. And that's something that we need to see more of this young man. We need to give him more minutes. We need to get him playing because, I want to see him starting for us in the next sort of year and a half. He needs to be in this Fulham side. No question.
Okay. What are your thoughts on that, Giannis?
Yeah, I agree with Tony on this one. I think it's. I'm not a fan of the giving players 1-2 minutes substitute time anyway, just to kill the game. It was 2-0. They had no chance of coming back in the game. They were woeful, to be honest. Give him half an hour, let him run around, let him sort it out. It's been a very tough Christmas schedule. You've got Man U next Sunday, so you've got plenty of time to rest players. Then you've got Wigan, where you may rest players anyway. I mean, King could play in that game, but
right.
give him a run out. Give him a run out. Give the lad a run out, and let's see what he can do. He's obviously a tremendously talented player. I disagree with Mark. I disagree with very little of what Marco does, but that is his treatment of Josh King. I'd like to see him get more playing time for sure.
Okay, excellent. All right, we're gonna go to the bad. So I actually would put the lack of playing time for King in the bad. And just that's where I think it deserves. But I want to talk about this. Carl Tanner actually shared this. Tony, over to you. Watching the match back, I think Castagna is a big link in our side. Now, I think we've missed Tete, but I want to get your thoughts on Castagna.
Look, I think the way that Tete started the season and what he was giving us in that fullback area, there has been a slight change in the dynamic in terms of how we've been since he's been out. And Castagna is a very slight, he's a different player to Tete. He's not going to give you what Tete can give you in terms of his forward runs and stuff like that. But I still think that, we're lucky to have him because at the end of the day, he's as good as any replacement that you're going to put in that position with an injury or someone that's not available. I don't think he's playing to the levels that he showed last season. Absolutely not. But yeah, look, he's not, I wouldn't say he's a weak link. What I'd say is that collectively, it was good to see the back four keep a clean sheet and not make any mistakes yesterday. And he was a part of that. And okay. I think that, what's important is that Castagna's there to defend first and foremost. So he's not going to be as forward thinking as Tete is. And we need to understand that. But look, we're lucky still to have him there. And yeah, look, he can improve in certain things like the whole of the back four can.
Okay, excellent. Your thoughts on that, my friend Giannis?
Yeah, I mean, Castagna, the problem is he's the only right back we've got right now. So I mean, we're stuck with him, and he's competent. I'm not so sure I'm going to go so wild on him. He's Tete had a tremendous start of the season. Unlucky to lose him to injury. Castagna, luckily we've got. That's why I'm going to play some credit to the Khans. We got strength and depth there. We could put Tim in there and to do a job. No, he's not a Tete at the moment, but he's doing okay. I'd say that the bad, actually, you're talking about the bad with Leicester. I'm going to.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we could definitely put them in the bad category.
Zero. I'm really. There's a couple of things here. You've got, Steve Cooper was made manager after Maresca left to go to Chelsea. And part of the problem with Cooper is that Cooper used to be at Nottingham Forest. He got their East Midlands nonsense derby rubbish. Their best player yesterday was Jamie Vardy. Jamie Vardy's 38. And you look at. I look down at their lineup. You've got Buonanotte should have started. Harry Winks. I don't know what's happened to him. Jordan Ayew looks like he's lost a yard in pace. That back three of Christensen, Vestergaard, and Feist still scares me.
Yep.
Oliver Skip did nothing when he came on. You got the fans yelling, "You don't know what you're doing." Buonanotte played well when he came on. They look poor. And I don't understand it because I think they've got the Premier League experience to stay up. Several teams are struggling at the bottom, but I watched highlights of the game against Palace in the week, and I was very disappointed. I thought they surely can't play that badly against us. The answer is they did, and I thought they're really going to struggle now.
Okay, very good. All right, guys, let's move on. Let's now talk about the coaching battle because I want to get your thoughts on who won the coaching battle. And Giannis, just like you said, the Leicester City supporters were basically singing, "You don't know what you're doing." So I think that kind of leads us to Marco winning the coaching battle. But I want to get your view overall between the two managers, the decisions they made, and then I'll go to Tony.
I think that his initials VNR should stand for very nearly relegated, because they're in.
That's good.
Buonanotte is one of their best players. I liked him at Brighton, and he's someone that maybe, if they're looking to get rid of him, Brighton, maybe we take a look at. He's someone on the ball that excites you. You always like to see players like that, but he brought him on. It was a weird lineup from Van Nistelrooy, and then when he made the substitutions, it was like for like. It wasn't nothing to add impetus to the game. As for us, I don't have any complaints except for the Josh King. Josh King. I've got this notion that I think there should be, unless it's an injury, I think there should be substitutions in the last 5-10 minutes of a game. Let the game flow like it did in the previous 80. Unless time wasting crap. It's so notional. It's like buying an iron for someone for Christmas. It's an insult gift. It's an insult giving somebody a minute to run on. Because at the end of the day, what's going to happen at the end of the game, they're going to go back to the stadium.
Way to look at it.
And then what they're going to do, they're going to go running up and down doing laps. So Josh King's a lad. Let the kid play.
Okay, very good. All right, Tony, I want to get your view of the coaching battle.
Yeah, look, Silva won it hands down. I think Giannis is absolutely spot on. Leicester are in an absolute dire straits. I think the decision to sack Cooper and bring in Van Nistelrooy is one of the most baffling decisions of all time in terms of Premier League. I don't know what the chairman was thinking there. It seems to me like there is a lot of unrest behind the scenes. It seems to me that I don't know. My son mentioned it yesterday. He watched Van Nistelrooy yesterday on the touchline, and he was just standing there with this arrogance, and there wasn't much coming from him to the players, and he seemed to be arguing with his coaches. I don't know. I think they're in a bad place, and I can't see Van Nistelrooy lasting till the end of the season. Is the honest truth. I can't see it. They've got championship written all over them. They've got some aging players,
I agree with that.
Aging players that have, as Giannis said, have lost the yard in pace. They haven't got the, that ability anymore. And as I said, Fulham won't have an easier game, in my opinion, all season.
I tend to agree with that. That's a good take there, my friend. I want to come back to you because you and I have talked about Anderson. We want to Diop to start, and we'll talk about the starting 11 coming up. Here's a comment from FFC at Heart. Does Tim make Anderson look a better player? What are your thoughts on that?
Listen, it's on Anderson to make himself look like a better player. He was better yesterday, Russ. Yeah. But then you've got to think about the opposition we were up against. And, Vardy still gave him the runaround. Every time Vardy got into those channels, Anderson looked like he was chasing dust. So that is a big problem for us. And we're going to be coming against the next two games, Newcastle, Man U and Newcastle. They've got pace in abundance in those areas. And that's where I'm going to judge Anderson. I'm not judging Anderson on a performance against a side as poor as Leicester yesterday, where he literally played the whole game with a cigar in his mouth,
Okay, very good. All right, guys, before we break down the match, let's just talk about the starting 11 because I think this is a good point to really good part of the show to really get into talking about the starting 11. So, Giannis, I'll give you first crack at this. 75 minutes before the match, when you saw the starting 11, what was your initial reaction?
Well, first thing I'm thinking is he's dispensed with the triple centre-back threat. He's taken Diop out, and I thought, and he's made the switch with Berger, and I thought, yeah, okay, all right, now we're beginning to talk. And that's no disrespect to Diop, because I think Diop's been excellent whenever he's come in. I've got no complaints about him, but it just added a little bit of solidity, a bit of equilibrium to the lineup. The other one was, of course, Andreas Pereira not
Yep.
being in it, and and little were we to know that he wasn't going to come off the bench. That might be the first time this year that that's happened, where he's not actually had any playing time. So I don't know whether that's a portent to a transfer or he's in the doghouse at the moment, but maybe that's punishment for Tuesday's mistake. It could be.
Maybe.
Luckily, he didn't bench Leno.
Yeah. Well, that
Yeah.
would have really been something. All right.
Something, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Over to you, Tony. You and I, like I said, I've already mentioned this. If you haven't listened to the beginning of the show, Tony and I did a preview show, and we both wanted Josh King to start over Emil Smith-Rowe. So Emil Smith-Rowe starts. We wanted Diop to start too. So we got a couple of these wrong. But what were your initial thoughts when you saw it? Obviously, it played out well for Fulham, but what did you think 75 minutes before?
When we talked about it pre-match about, the 11, it was all hypothetical because we knew that really he's going to stick to what he knows. But look, I did say, and we did talk about it, Russ, that let's see if Silva's got anything about him and whether or not he'll drop Pereira. And credit to him, he did.
He did.
And it was, it was a no-brainer, as we said, that if Berger's fit and he's declared fit, he needs to come straight back in.
Now, that was your call. I remember this. When we did the show, I said, you got this one spot on. I want to give Tony credit on this because I was thinking he would come off the bench. You said, no, if he's fit, he should start. And you ended up being right.
Absolutely. Look, I would love to have seen Josh King start. I honestly, I really would. But I think that, with Berger and Lukic playing in those roles, basically there's only one position for three players, Pereira, Smith-Rowe and Josh King. And, he's not going to throw, unfortunately at the moment, whilst those other two are in and around it, he's not going to throw him in and give him that opportunity. So I was pleased to see Smith-Rowe given that chance. And I was pleased that actually he performed to a level that, we know the kind of player that he can be. But as I said, the most important thing for me was Pereira didn't deserve to start after his performance against West Ham, and it hasn't deserved to start just in general. So, credit to Silva for benching him, 100%.
Okay. Giannis, I want to go back to you. I got a comment that I want to get your thoughts, and Tony, I'll then go to you on this. This is an interesting one from our friend Brian. He says, happy with the win, but is this result papering over the cracks? That's an interesting take here. What are your thoughts?
No, I think our record of the last 10 games, one defeat. We've had a number of draws, but we've played well. We've had a couple of struggles, Southampton, Ipswich in there. But we've had some good results in there. No, I think we're doing okay. If we'd lost 3 or 4 in 10, I might be a little bit worried. You've got to beat the poor teams.
Yes.
And what would have happened if we were sitting here and it's 0-0? I was remarking to my wife at half time. I said, this looks like a 0-0, to be honest, because it was, as Tony said, it was such a boring first half. Honestly, I was thinking of playing with the cats and they were sleeping. But I thought, you take the rough with the smooth. You get the win in.
Yeah.
Interesting. I was thinking, going back to Pereira. I bet Pereira starts next Sunday.
Okay.
Because I'm going to bet he's going to start against United because it's against his old team.
That's an interesting view on that. That would be interesting to see if that's a factor there. Okay. Over to you, Tony. What are your thoughts about this comment from Brian here?
Look, I can understand what Brian's saying, and it's one of those interesting ones where Fulham currently sit at the moment. I think that at the end of the day, as I said to you many times, at the beginning of the season, if you'd say after 22 games we'd be 9th, you would have taken it, right?
Yeah.
I think the frustration is that it's just the inconsistency, as Yanis says, with our performances against the teams in the lower half of the table, as opposed to our performances against the teams in the higher part. If you look at the top 4 in the Premier League, we've drawn with Liverpool, drawn with Arsenal, beaten Newcastle, and beaten Forest. Then that's your top 4 at the moment. And
I know
we've had results pretty much against the total. And then if you look at the bottom 4, Southampton, Ipswich, Leicester, West Ham, whatever, we've dropped points against all those teams. So, or bar Leicester. But, it's a difficult, I don't think it's papering over the crack. I think we are where we are with the squad that we've got. And we know that if Silva can add 2 or 3 quality additions to what we've got, it will take us up another gear and another level.
Okay, excellent stuff. All right. Coming up next in the second half of the show, Tony, Giannis, and myself are going to be breaking down the match, and we will end with man of the match. Okay, Giannis, I'm going to start with you. So it's funny because I was thinking about key moments in the first half. Honestly, there really isn't much really to talk about. Just I want to give Leicester City credit for coming out and looking like the better in the first 10 minutes. But beyond that, Fulham grew into the match. What did you take out of this first half? You guys have both said how boring it is, and I agree with you on that. But is there anything to take out of this?
No, it was dull. It was dull. It was. You could see where Leicester were. First 10 minutes they asked some questions of us, but
Right.
really, you could tell they were struggling. They really couldn't put a lot together. And you've got, I mean, the state of their club right now is you have a 38-year-old running socks off as a striker because you've not been able, or the ownership has failed to invest in the players that they need. It's they've lost a lot of players. Madison, Dewsbury Hall, the ladders at Newcastle, who I always forget his name. They've given up very, very good players, and who have they replaced them with? And Jamie Vardy's still there at 38 doing his thing.
Yeah.
They're and the malaise of the club. Maresca did a very good job coming out of the championship last year, but the malaise of the club was really that first half. It was dire to watch. We at least tried to play open, attractive football. They didn't even try that. It wasn't an entertaining first half by any means.
Okay, Tony, you've already said that. Is there anything else that you'd like to add about this first half of football?
Yeah, I was going to ring Yanis to ask if I could have played with his cats.
Well, one of them's, they're both old cats. One of them's actually black and white. I call him Luna, but even he was having a yawn in the first half. I mean, it was just a snoozer, and it's a shame.
It was.
Is this the same club that won the Premier League 10 years ago?
It's crazy, but Giannis, to your point, look at all the players that have left, that they've let leave, and they really have not basically replaced any of them. You're talking like you mentioned, Madison and even Dewsbury Hall, who was very good for them last season. I'm thinking, why are you letting him go? Why are you doing this? And I think the blame really needs to be on their board. And I think that's what they're really frustrated. I'm talking about the Leicester City supporters. How would we feel if Fulham let all these players go and really didn't replace them? I mean, it's terrible, Tony. Well, what are your thoughts about all that? I know we complain about the cons and all, but this is like next level.
Yeah, Dewsbury Hall has made an absolute ricket because what's he done? He's given up regular first-team football to go and sit on the bench at Chelsea. Well, that doesn't make any sense to me either, to be honest with you. But look, I mean, at the end of the day, Leicester are Leicester. I only care about what Fulham do, Russ, is the honest truth. And look, ultimately, yeah, the first half wasn't great, but you know what? The good thing is we managed to get to half-time with a clean sheet because we've seen this story many times before, and we knew going into the game that Leicester hadn't won a game for 6 games, and that could easily, being against Fulham, they could easily have turned that round, knowing what happens to Fulham when they come to town. But once they found their rhythm and they got into the game, it was one-way traffic, and obviously second half they upped their levels and took it to them.
Okay. Tony, I'm going to go right back to you. Before we talk about the second half, we have to talk about the substitution. Now, at the time, I don't think we knew the reason. Now we're learning that it was he was feeling ill from reportedly the flu, which hopefully he'll be okay, obviously, by the next match, and he didn't give it to anyone else, hopefully. But interesting substitution here, bringing on Traore. So I just want to get your thoughts on when this decision comes over. You see that Iwobi's coming off and Traore's coming on. What did you make of it at the time?
Yeah, I didn't think he was injured, so I kind of thought he's definitely obviously not well, or something's happened, because Silva doesn't take Iwobi off at half time because he wasn't playing well. There was obviously something not right. So look, I was pleased to see Traore come on and get a good 45 minutes. And listen, that's what he's capable of. It's just, unfortunately, with him, it's just too inconsistent. If he could come on to games like that and perform like he did yesterday and finish like he did yesterday. I mean, that finish yesterday was absolutely sublime. what a great finish, let me tell you. But, you know, he could get the same chance again next week against Man U, and that ball could fly over the bar. That's the thing. You just don't know what you're going to get with him. But, you know, I thought when he came on, he was very direct. He injected a lot of energy and pace into our forward areas, which we were lacking. And I think Iwobi was lacking because he wasn't feeling well. And it's obviously clear now that we know that. And it made a big difference to us.
Okay. Over to you, Giannis. I want to get your thoughts on this. And I want to put this to you as well. Very often, Marco will not make substitutions at halftime unless a Fulham are behind, or in this situation where we're now learning that it was an illness. That's the reason why he made the substitution. So this was not really tactical. This was because of the situation with Iwobi. So I want to get your thoughts on that, but I also want to get your thoughts on why Marco really doesn't often make substitutions at halftime.
Yeah, well, the last time he did that, the wholesale, I think, was Forest away last year when we were 3 down at half time.
Okay, well, that's right.
And we were getting pasted. But I knew that something was very wrong, and Tony's right. There's no way it's tactical. Something. Either my first thought was, well, maybe he's got a knock, but he did look off colour. You could see it. Nothing seemed to be going right. And Iwobi's played really well recently. But now there's something not a little untoward. So I'm not glad, but I'm glad it's the flu, if anything, and he's hopefully not passed it on to anybody, and it's not an injury, because we're going to need him next Sunday. I see that our friends up at Old Trafford are losing right now, so they're not going to be very happy. And that's when's the last time we said, well, Man U are winnable, very winnable game, a game we should look forward to and go at them, the buggers. And we're going to need Iwobi for that, because. Yep. But back to your point, it's rare that he does that. He'll go 11 unless there's something really untoward going on, and then we know what he's going to do. 60, 65 minutes. Tom Cairney comes on with his hair waving in the wind.
No, very good there, Giannis. Okay. Back over to you, Tony, and let's now talk about the early stages. And this is something that has been a problem for Fulham throughout the season, starting the second half strong. They've really struggled here. However, something was different here because they came out with a purpose, and you have the goal from Emile Smith-Rowe. I'm going to give you the honors to talk about what you saw leading up to the goal and the goal itself.
Yeah, like you said, for the first time in a long time, we came out early, seemed to be on the front foot. As I said, Traore seemed to inject a little bit of more energy into that area of the pitch, and then Raul, who we haven't actually spoken a lot about at the moment today, but again, selflessness in terms of his work ethic and his work rate off the ball and what he gives the team in those forward areas. He picks up the ball on the left wing. He puts in a lovely cross to the back post where Harry Wilson picks it up, forces him to take that loop cross over his head back into the box. And there's Lukic, who's been working tirelessly again, up and down. He gets in front of his man, and it looks like he's about to set to score.
Yep.
But his head is skewed back across the box, and then Smith-Rowe, as Giannis said, throws himself very bravely into that area. And sometimes you've got to put yourself on the line and in those areas to get the reward, and he got it. And it was a well-deserved goal. And, put us on the front foot to go and take the game to them.
Absolutely, Tony. I can't remember what match it was. You can probably remember that it happened not that long ago where he actually had a header. Not too similar to this, but a header that he missed wide. Do you remember what match that was? It was recently, right?
I can't actually.
Okay.
Off the top of my head.
All right. Giannis, do you remember?
No, and I've got no head. Trust me.
Okay, Giannis. All right. I know he had a header that went wide recently. I was trying to remember what match. If you're watching live and you can remember better than the three of us, please let me know. Okay. All right, Giannis. Back over to you. Let's now talk about the second goal, which I believe was around the 68th minute. And this was a fantastic finish from Traore. As Tony had already said, if he does this often, I mean, it would be a different story with Traore, but this was This was just top class by Adama Traore. Your thoughts on the second goal?
It was a brilliant goal, but Harry Wilson's cross was sublime. It really was, and Wilson has shown why he's been picked now. It's his consistency. It's not just coming off the bench and doing great things, a la Brentford, lest we forget. But he's starting and he's contributing in so many ways. It was a lovely cross, and to be honest, Adama, it fell perfectly. All he needed to do was side foot it in the net, and he did it. He did it with aplomb. And when we scored, I thought that's it. We could score 3 or 4 now, because you could tell the heads were dropping, and the Leicester fans were booing. They were starting to empty. I almost said Filbert Street. It's the King Power, of course. I'm aging myself. The King Power, and I wish Adama was more consistent, because we know what he's got. He's got incredible pace, and he does have a lot of skill. But it just goes to show that that he can score goals. It's just he had a miss against the Spammers on Tuesday. Lest we forget, that would have tied it up late on, and he just needs to have that consistency that I hope one day will come.
Okay, excellent. All right, over to you, Tony. Let's now talk about just the overall analysis of the second half. But I want to focus on, we've already talked a little bit at the beginning of the show about Marco's substitution. So I want to get your thoughts on his decisions here, especially obviously the late ones. I do understand the Diop one, but again, you're talking the final minute. It's the Josh King one that really stands out.
Yeah, look, as I said, I don't understand bringing on players for that, 1 minute. As Yanis says, you're more likely to get a bloody injury than anything else, because they've been sitting there cold all day, and then you're bringing them on, and all you need is them to go on one sprint, and suddenly the hamstring goes, and you can lose a player. I just don't think it's necessary. I really, really don't. But look, that aside, as I said, I think that for whatever reason at half-time, Silva got into them. I don't think he would have been particularly happy with the first half. Not the performance, but the fact that we didn't take advantage of a very poor Leicester side. They offered nothing. And I think he would have been disappointed going in 0-0 at half-time, to be honest. Other than the clean sheet, I don't think he would have had anything else to be particularly happy about. But he obviously got into them. Second half, he then, as I said, makes the change. As Yanis said, Iwobi was off colour, and he got Traore on. That seemed to, rejuvenate us. Then he brings Muniz and Kearney on. And again, they were quite late. I mean, Muniz came on with 20 minutes to go, and then Kearney came on with 10 minutes to go. So again, they're not getting much opportunity to get into the game to make an impact.
Right.
But like I said, Leicester were poor. I think we could have played at least 3 or 4 under 18s, and it wouldn't have made any difference yesterday. That's how poor they were. So I just think that ultimately Silva did what he had to do to get the result. And I said, it's a good recovery after, Tuesday night shenanigans. And what's important now is that with the break, with the time frame that we've got between now and Manchester, he's got to get himself and the team up for that game. You're going to analyse the game that Man U've just played against Brighton, and we've got to hurt them where they're weak, and we know where they're weak.
Yeah, good point there. And I want to end the show talking a little bit about that upcoming match, guys. That's how we'll end the show. But Yanis, before we wrap up talking about the match and go to man of the match, any final thoughts on the second half?
Yeah, it was a bit of a cakewalk, wasn't it? We didn't look like we were going to be in any sort of danger. That once the second goal went in, I mean, the first goal, they dropped their heads. The second goal, it was over. They're in a whole world of hurt right now, and but we've got to look after ourselves. It's just a little baffling to see a club like Leicester, 10 years removed from winning the Premier League, looking like they're really struggling, looking like they're rudderless. And it went back to the Cooper decision, and it was all because of this East Midlands rivalry nonsense. He had no chance. He got 10 points in his first 10 games as manager at Leicester, and Van Nistelrooy has got 4 points in his first 12.
That's terrible. I know.
I mean, it doesn't make any sense, and Leicester fans have every reason to be annoyed about it, because their team looks. They won the championship last year, and they won it with ease. This is not the same. They just don't look the same.
Okay, very good. All right, guys, we're going to end talking about the match with man of the match. And Tony, I'll go to you first. I think you've already mentioned who your man of the match is. It was Harry Wilson. So let's talk a little bit about that. If you're watching live, feel free to share who was your man of the match.
Yeah, I just think because of his involvement in both goals, his delivery. I think during the 90 minutes, he made the most key passes. He made the two big chances, and I just think overall, also defensively, don't forget what he gave us without the ball as well. His defensive side of the game, he won every battle. He won his tackles. I just thought that, he was just excellent yesterday. I think he was the difference between the two teams. I really do.
Okay, excellent. Giannis, over to you.
To me, it's and I thought Harry had a very good game. To me, it was Sander Berger. He just made the difference that he made to the defensive shape of the midfield with Sasha Lukic was just outstanding. And I'm still scratching my head because I was one of the naysayers when I found out they were going in for him.
Yep.
Just on the basis of what he'd done. I'd seen at Sheffield United and Burnley, but testament to the coaching of Marco because he's a huge player, and I think that he's been a massive addition, and delighted to have him back from injury, and kudos to him, and I thought he had an excellent game yesterday.
Okay, I'm going to just share some more comments. Our friend Colm says Sander Berger, and then FFC at Heart. Berger, excellent. Sasha, excellent. Here, Harry, man of the match. So there you go. So he has Harry as man of the match. I'm going to go with Sander Berger, but I don't think you could be wrong with any of these players, honestly, that we've talked about. I just think that he changed from being installed into the starting 11 and had a massive impact to what we watched. So for me, being able to be balanced, Tony, you and I have talked about the balance. I think he is key to that balance. And it's funny because you and I have talked about this. At times, he looks a little bit lazy's not the right word, or he just looks labored, like when he's moving. But I think that's just his style. He's in control. That's the way I'm kind of seeing it. Is that he's more of a player that's in control. It just doesn't look. It looks a little bit effortless. It's funny that there are players in the NFL that don't look like they're moving, but they're actually doing a lot. It's just their style. So I kind of understand why fans think that Berger might, in the beginning stages, wasn't doing much. I just think that's kind of the way he plays. I want to share this from our friend Brian. He says, man of the match, grade A, Berger. Okay, so very good. All right, good stuff. All right, guys, before we wrap up this show, I do want to just talk a little bit about Manchester United to finish this up. So, Giannis, I want to get your thoughts on the upcoming match. I'm watching them right now. They're about to lose to Brighton and Hove Albion, and I'm actually upset because it's going to move Brighton ahead of us. But I want to get your thoughts on Manchester United heading into the match.
They're not very good. They're not very good. I mean, if you remember the first game of the season up at Old Trafford, we lost 1-0. The Xerxes goal. And I thought we played really well in that game. And to me, they look all over the shop. They look like a team that's in lower mid-table. They look like a team that doesn't look like itself, and it has no identity. I can't look at United and say they have one. And we should really go at them next Sunday. We should make this like a cup final. Just go at them and give them a bash, and just, as I think Marco said, we've got now nothing to lose.
No.
Just let's have some fun with these games, and United is as good a game as any to do that. I'm really excited about the game coming up.
So am I, Giannis. Over to you, Tony. Your thoughts.
For Brighton to go to Old Trafford and be winning 3-1 just tells you everything you need to know. I mean, United are another team that are in absolute disarray. Absolute disarray. I mean, their manager can't be judged until next season, as far as I'm concerned, because he's coming in there and he is someone that is papering over the cracks, is the honest truth.
Yeah.
As far as we're concerned, look, any team that's got Harry Maguire at the back and another in goal, right? We should be taking full advantage of. Honestly, I genuinely mean it. That they are absolutely in disarray. They've got a couple of good youngsters, definitely. We know that.
Yep.
But look, we should have got a result against them at the first game of the season at Old Trafford. We threw it away in the last minute, and really we were the better side pretty much over that 90 minutes. I think we're a better side now than we were then.
Right.
So I expect if Silva picks the right side and lines up correctly, then I am expecting us to win the game. I don't think we'll win it comfortably, but I think that it's a game that we should win and we should definitely control.
Okay, so Tony, there are two upcoming matches in the second half of the season that I think Fulham, at the beginning of the season, you might not have thought, okay, we should be winning this. That's Tottenham Hotspur and that's Manchester United. These are, I think we should be looking at them differently than in years past. So I'm there with you on Manchester United. Here's a question from Colm. He says, who would you start against Manchester United next week between Muniz and Jimenez? I'm leaning towards Muniz. Well, what are your thoughts on that? I still stick with Jimenez.
I stick with Jimenez as well, definitely. And Muniz is that player you want to come off the bench with 25 minutes to really go at a tiring and aging Maguire if he plays, 100%. But I just because of what Jimenez gives us in terms of his hold-up play, his runs off the ball. He's just got that little bit more experience than Muniz at the moment, and I just think he'd be a little bit more effective. But that's my opinion.
Okay. Giannis, how about you?
Jimenez all day long.
Okay.
I think Muniz will be good to come and bring off the bench, but Jimenez hasn't done anything wrong, and he's going to give them fits. I mean, Harry Maguire. Oh dear, I'm a Maguire boo boy. I've never rated him, and I'm never going to.
Okay.
It's a big lug to me. I just and Onana is a mistake
100%.
waiting to happen. I mean,
He made a big one today, guys. While we're doing this show, if you watch the highlights, you're going to say, "Oh my Lord, the mistake he made." So,
well, we fans were going off at Leno making a mistake against West Ham. He's allowed one. I mean, it's so rare that he does it. But look at Onana, and you always think he's going to make a brilliant save, and then he's going to have the dropsies.
But Giannis, I put it this way: if you think about what United paid for Onana, right, and what we paid for Leno,
yeah,
it is beyond crazy. And if you're a United fan now, you take Leno over Onana all day long. All day long.
Yeah,
hands down, guys. Great show. I do want to wrap this up before we go. Tony, any final thoughts?
No, listen, it's been a great show. Thank you for having me. Always great to talk Fulham with you guys. Look, I hope that Fulham, go next Saturday and get that consistency going and get the run of games that we want, and put in a good performance. There's no reason why we can't.
Okay, Mr. Janaeus, great to have you back on. Any final thoughts?
let's go and smash United. Let's go.
There we go.
Let's do it. I'm ready.
There we go. And I'll say it once again, not just Manchester United, the Spurs too for me. Oh yeah, Spurs for me too. Yeah, just I can't stand them. You and I were talking about that before. So I want both, man. I want both. So I'll just share that. Okay. Well, listen, I do want to wrap up this show. I just want to thank everyone who was watching live, and I'm going to say it one more time. And I know Colm usually says it, and others that are watching on YouTube. Please do subscribe on YouTube. I want to get my subscribers up on YouTube. I'd like to get it to 1,000. We're at about 731. I could use your help with that. If you can just, again, it doesn't cost you anything to basically subscribe on YouTube. It gives you alerts when we go live. So please do subscribe on YouTube. Okay. Well, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. He's Giannis Janaeus. He's Tony Gold. I happen to be Russ Goldman. Thank you, as always, for watching. Listen to Cottage Talk, part of the Talk Sport Fan Network.